here we are with the mid-season-ish Season 3 World Arena tier list. So the way this works is, see all the tiers here? I will very briefly go over what each of them means. We might edit this a little bit too as we go on if I find that, some of them may be too close to each other. Let's start from the top down. Meta-defining are heroes, I believe, who are currently warping the playstyle of, the game, or just so strong that you almost always have to account for them. High priority picks are obviously ones that you might want to snatch up before your opponent. They're probably good in and against a lot of other comps. Situational are units that you don't always pick, but are usually strong enough against units in these tiers that are not just pure counter picks, which we'll get to. Pocket picks are picks that are not commonly seen that you might want to bring out from time to time. Counter picks are specific units that are picked against other specific units. So think like Selene, or or things like Politis would fall into here. Of course, if a unit that could go here happens to be just really, really meta, it would probably go up here instead. Cleave units are just units that are only used for cleave teams. Meme units, I think that's self-explanatory and not criminally viable. So we're not going to go through every single hero. That'll take too long. So this tier is reserved for heroes who maybe at one time was usable in World Arena, but the changes to the meta has kind of kicked them out down here. This list is aimed at high champ legend level. So depending on your ranking, some units and strategies might be different or more or less viable for you. On top of that, my play strategy or my play style is it's pretty offensive in nature. And if your strategy is say knights or debuffing, stuff like that, some units for you might, have a little more oomph to them. But this is based on my experiences and on my current knowledge. So let's get going. We'll start with Achates. At the moment, Achates is she's really not criminally viable. She could be considered to be maybe a pocket or a counter, but there are just better cleansers in the game, which we'll get to a couple of them a little bit later on. But her defensive defensive stats are really bad, and you really had to have a team that's fully built around her, I feel. Adley. I think he's still a counter pick. He's definitely not as good now with Politis running around. So what it is, it's really weird now because a lot of cleave players, sometimes they pick Politis because she's just so good against their strategy that it actually makes the counter cleave in Adelaide like worse. But he's still here, even though he is like pretty rare, I'd say. A Raz is a high priority pick. I don't see him as much right now because the one of the dual attackers he likes going with isn't as strong right now, and I'll get to that character a little later on. But 3-star hero, everybody should have access to him. Definitely worth building. Alencia is a... It's really like... This is pretty close here. I think... She's a pocket pick at the moment. You don't really see her that often. She does benefit from being grass right now because a couple of the really strong units obviously are water. So she does have a good reach versus some of the meta strategies, but there are typically better options that do more damage, and that's really the key here, is that for the most part her damage is a little bit too low right now. A Tywin. So A Tywin is a character that I don't really have a lot of information on him because I have pre-banned him just about every single fight this season. So I don't actually know how strong he is. I'm gonna put him like here though. I doubt he's gonna be any lower than this. A Momo, unfortunately, I think most healers are going to be put into this part right here. I think there might be like one that isn't, but Singelica is a counter pick, obviously, for like Arby, basically. That's really it. Not the best one, but A Ravi is currently a pocket pick. Single target damage dealers right now are having a hard time in the meta. And the offensive nature of RTA right now definitely hurts her a bit because she gets like deleted a little bit too quickly. We will be going over all the 5 stars. Fire Mintha, she's a little too much RNG. Arby is gonna be the first unit we put into the top tier. If anybody thought that RV was like yesterday's news or whatever, the changes to like attack scaling in RTA and frenzy and everything has made him the premier DPS of the season, in my opinion. There might be like one other unit I would say is the premier DPS, but in terms of like flexibility and having to account for like a singular unit in the game, Arby takes like the top slot. He can be built a number of different ways, so counter, like super fast, basket, just a good in cleave, good against cleave, good against the Fairy Tail Cerise comp, right? Good with that comp, obviously. So, obviously very strong right now. Even with the plethora of counters he has. Acid is a basically you only see him as a counter pick to like cleave or going like super fast. Same thing with A. Coli. So similar, although I think A. Coli is more situational. Where A. Coli, you can build her a couple of ways to make her good versus knights and stuff because of her her stealth EE and or like just a stealth in general, right? And A. Sid is more a pure counter unit. A. Coli is a little bit flexible based on the build. A. Lots obviously is a cleave unit. He has a CR push, right? He has attack buff. We all know what he does. Baiken is unfortunately not currently viable right now. Again, single target damage dealers that aren't like super fast, like A. Sid or A. Coli, are gonna have difficult times. But Sar is a right now. I think he's situational. He counters more than like one unit, right? But he's not a unit you just pick. Like, you'll pick him later in the draft if you think that he might be a priority ban. His S3 is really strong against a lot of the common openers like FCC, Cerise, Fairy Tail, Emerald Crow, stuff like that. And players now are probably building him like slower with more effectiveness and more bulk to help survive some of the offensive onslaughts like Arby and things like that. What's your Shuri? He's just a speed imprint that's sometimes used. Not as common as like Red Shuri because he gets a better imprint. But if you really think you need to burst down like an FCC or something like that, and you don't have maybe an OP Sigrid, he is used sometimes. Broman is a character I think could be considered a pocket pick. However, I have legitimately not seen him picked one time in the past like 6 weeks. So I'm gonna put him down into like not currently viable. Not that necessarily I believe he's not viable. It's just that Bazaar is better than he is. Like Fairy Tail is better than he is. Um, and he's destroyed by like even harder by like the Rwanda SSB combo than the Fairy Tail combo is, right? So even though I do think he's, not like he's definitely better than all of these heroes like to the left of him in RTA, but his pick rate doesn't show that. BBK hasn't been viable for like 2 seasons. MO Ken is he's like a pocket pick right now. He kind of counters like a couple of things, but it is a lot harder to use him this season than last season. You won't see him that often, but he can like clean up a team that isn't like prepared for him. If you have him though, right, and he's not built, I'd probably leave him be. He's definitely his gear requirement is really high to be viable. You need a lot of bulk, you need a lot of damage, you need Sigurds, and with like, I feel like this row here, like these 2 rows, you definitely need a lot of like game knowledge to utilize like these 2 rows pretty efficiently. Brysaria, she's now I believe a high priority pick. She's really strong right now. She's really good against units like ML Crow, Cerise. Her immortality buff allows her to go into things like Arby. It allows her to fight against Cleave and counter AoE them. She will almost always get an attack off if you ban and pick successfully. She is personally one of my most picked units that I use. So don't be listening to like Reddit or whatever who says she's still not good. She's a common hero I see a lot, and she actually gets banned quite a bit too. And just that leaves the door open for like, other harder hitting heroes in your compositions. Iseria, she's a little bit too slow at the moment. I think Red Cecilia is a meme right now. She's hurt by the fact she's fire. Like she can be okay. It's just that like as far as the immunity givers go, being fire typed is definitely the worst type for it. Because the debuffers right now are water, so you just kind of like lose that battle right there. Celeste, speed imprint, fast, right? AoE, so cleave unit right there. Celine is a counter pick. Good against A-Lots. Good against things like, if she doesn't have damage, top model Luluka. Good against like Falcon and Clarice actually. So, a lot of situations where she can just bust through. And her being strong has made like Bryceria a lot stronger too. Because Bryceria can like just eat the S2 and then just eliminate her. So another reason why Bryceria is even stronger at the moment. Cerise is... I don't think I have to explain this one too much. She is a... definitely one of the strongest units in the game. She opens up a lot of strategies. Without her, the Fairy Tail comp would not be nearly as successful as it is right now. She's good in cleave. She's obviously a really fast hero who can be speed checked against cleave too. She has a stun. She has access to a couple of really strong limited artifacts in Guiding Light and in Miss Confi. She can also definitely push out, or help push out, a lot of damage when combined with other offensive-based heroes, especially right now in this meta, as offensive heroes are very important. Sidam is basically only be seen in cleave teams, so we'll put her here. Champion Zerato has definitely risen to prominence. He counters. He's really good against, obviously, the debuff combos and everything like that. He's not quite good enough to put up here, right? Like, there are times where even though I feel like I could draft him, that there's enough counterplay to his skill set that he's like over here. Although I do think like he might be a little bit better than these two units at the moment. You just have to be like more careful in like just blindly picking him when the enemy has debuffers. Like, I think he's better than Basar in most cases in the current meta, but Basar is usually like a pick that even if he's not as good, overall he's like safer than picking Zerato. Because with Zerato, if the other person picks, say, like Rowana SSB, right? Like, yeah, the Zerato is gonna, maybe knock back some SSB, debuffs and stuff. But the SSB is gonna, like, re-counter back and just destroy, your team. Or the Rowana is just gonna heal whenever the Zerato counter attacks. So, like those are, like, the things you have to take into consideration. Charles is... I think it's a meme right now. I say that because I haven't seen a Charles picked in a long time either. I say meme because, like, maybe he'll, like, counterattack, 9,001 times and do Charles things. I think Red Forehead Queen Charlotte is also a meme unit. I think she's better than Cecilia and Charles right now. But her reliance on having buffs up to really maximize her potential is pretty... It's not consistent with the current top units like Cerise, Fairy Tail, but even like Bizarre, Bryceria going around. And even before now, I was never too high on Red Charlotte. Find Maya is a pocket pick. She is... It's hard to judge her. She's one of those... She's like a feast or famine unit. So she's either gonna do amazing things for you, or she's gonna do, or she'll do nothing at all. That seems to be the case. So she's like what Charles, kind of used to be a little bit, but she's just a little better situated for the current meta. She is hurt by that. She is a single target attacker. And like I said, they have trouble right now for the most part. But the fact that she is a pretty good check to Arbiter Vildred and can shrug off a couple of debuffs maybe does make her fairly strong, if not overwhelmingly so. Crimson Armin is... I don't think she's viable right now. Maybe we get her really fast somehow and give you your use immunity. But man, you would have to go zoom to do that. And this is from somebody who used her quite a bit last season. It's just a little bit too difficult to get her to a point where I'd feel semi-comfortable picking her in her best case scenarios. Dark Corvus is... a very rare pocket pick, I would say. Who... The problem here is that it's really hard to find teams that you can pick him into. Because the meta is so offensive right now that even with a lot of AoE, and with all the debuffs and control going out, you're gonna get deleted. But there are situations where I feel if somebody had a Dark Corvus build, he'd do pretty good. Let's talk about Shu. Shu's a meme at the moment. She's not. She's like, if if like knights were stronger, right? Or if like bruisers were stronger right now, I feel like she'd be stronger too. But the things she does well against, which are like bulkier targets that, would sustain, aren't the top tier in the meta, which is why she's kind of wallowing with her like other like bruiser counters in the meme tier. Destina is unfortunately a little bit too slow, and her cooldown is a little bit too long to be viable, even with all of the debuffers right now. There are just better options for cleanses. DN2 is she's like not picked that often. Again, like Soul Weavers are in a bad spot. She's definitely stronger than like every unit here though, right? I think she's okay for a pocket pick. She'll be very rare, right? That you'll pick her, but she at least does something to help the rest of your team, right? Where like these units here, they're either like too slow, or once they do like whatever they do, they just like don't do anything after that. Dizzy. Man, it's really weird that I'm debating whether or not I want to put Dizzy in pocket or in not critically viable. Because she is really hard to use right now. Like, which is weird to think about, because like debuffers are so strong, but Dizzy just like kind of isn't. I think she's still a pocket pick. Like, if a team is opened up to a control, to like heavy control, she's a decent option. If like say Fairy Tail gets banned, right, in the pre-draft. DJ Bizarre is he's not valuable. He does one thing, and not even better than like other heroes. Okay. Blue Dom is a meme. She has the reflect buff, right? That's why you'll see her. Doris. Oh well, this is normal Doris, so we'll skip her and we'll get to like other Doris later. Eaton. So some people will draft Eaton for anti-cleave, but I don't think that's as good as maybe other anti-cleave options in the game. So I'll put him in meme. Right? Yes, he does give like a pretty decent defensive boost. Especially because it's without a barrier. So like he's better against say Op Sigrid than FCC is. Or if FCC just gets banned, which is also common. But I can't in good faith put him anywhere but in here. Again, I don't cleave, so I don't personally see like his results, and people don't really cleave against me that much either. And even if they did, I don't have him built up. So this is like more speculation and just like knowing that some people pick him overall. But I do think as far as anti-cleave options goes, he's low. He's like low enough on the totem pole to put here. Elena. I think now a very well built Elena could be okay. Probably more down here though. Right? Like her there's a lot of AoE going around, and if you somehow like make a team that's resistant enough to it with Elena on the team, you can maybe out sustain a little bit if you have, a tiny bit of damage also on the team. Not a high priority pocket pick, but something that if you have her built, you might find useful. Elphelt. So Elphelt is obviously not viable, right? But I had to put her here just because she's probably the worst 5-star unit in the game. So whenever you see her, it's obviously for like a YouTube video or something like that, right? Irvalin 2 is pretty close to being like the worst 5-star in the game with Elphelt. He just doesn't do enough damage. And again, he's also single target, which definitely hurts him. Fairy Tail. This might be controversial. I'm gonna put her here instead of up here. Mainly because Fairy Tail definitely has more counterplay than Cerise does, in my opinion. At least counterplay that's like accessible build wise. Maybe not like unit pool wise, but in terms of building units that will help you against Fairy Tail is a lot easier than say speed checking a Cerise, or just like making it so that a Cerise isn't gonna like at least maybe restrict speed down. And Cerise is also, I believe, better against and with more compositions than Fairy Tail Tenebria is, right? Because the Fairy Tail Tenebria, a lot of comps have to be built like with her in mind. Where Cerise, she can be like tossed in to almost any composition in the game, and she'll perform pretty well. But still a really good unit, obviously. Definitely something that you'd have to consider when drafting. Faithless Litica is now she's a cleave unit. She's actually dropping out of favor because she's like too slow with like Fairy Tail Ceresis and stuff running around, right? And even fast like Bricerias and everything maybe that are happening. So, but still, you know, probably only see her in the cleave teams these days. Falcon Clary. She goes here in high priority. Her like I'd say her placement right now is kind of like she could go here, but I don't think she's as strong overall as Disu's units. I think her pick rate I don't think is as high as Fairy Tail's either. But she is still a good unit to have. She's pretty good against Cerise too, because she can provoke the invincibility off, stuff like that. You know, her S3 is still really strong. Of course, there's a 15% you have to take into account for. Flan, unfortunately, she's not viable at the moment. G. Purgus is a pretty strong situational pick. Good against AoE pushers, right? Good against like some cleave teams too, if you can toss him in. So, and not just against cleave, right? Like, let's say you have him with like counters to maybe like the Fairy Tail comp, ban out Cerise. He can help your cleansers, right, get pushed forward past like maybe the Arby in cases like that. So it's just that most players will have him built on Wyvern, 13 duty, and you will probably have to, re-gear him a little bit for RTA. Okay, MO Haste. I think right now he's situational. No, actually, he's probably a counter pick at the moment. A very strong counter pick to Arby, because Arby is like one of the strongest DPSs in the game. But still, it's not like last season you would just pick MO Haste just to have him, right? It didn't matter if the other team had Arby or not. It's not like this season. This season, if you pick MO Haste, most of the time, the other team has Arby picked, right? So I feel like specifically for season 3, he's just a counter pick to Arby. Probably the best one. And definitely has reach beyond that, but not enough where I put him like up here. Haste obviously is not viable. Holiday Euphine. is Red Haste, native enemy. So in RTA, World Arena, Fire Haste just doesn't do enough in upper ranks. The problem is that one, he's fire type, and fire type debuffers are they have a rough time right now, since the counter debuffers are all water types. Yeah, because of SSB, but also like Cerise, Fairy Tail, right? You know, units like that. And his debuffs aren't as strong as the other debuffers in the game. Yes. Right now, she counters a pretty good set of the meta. Her immortality buff, right, has definitely raised her up quite a bit. Unfortunately, her gearing is pretty insane. Mine is like mid speed. I use my Braceria basically against, obviously Emil Crow is the unit that she does the best against, but she's also really good against like cleave comps, because she will always get an S3 basically against them. But there are a number of ways you can build it. You can build her like slower with a lot of damage. You can build it as like an opener, right? You can build her, like I do, like mid speed to like soften up for like a burst. All right. So Violet's a meme, right? I always say this because I was watching this one fight where a green Violet literally almost soloed an entire team. It was like the most amazing. It was almost the most amazing thing I ever saw. But I said almost soloed the team. So like he didn't. He lost. But if it happened, But like just like the concept of like that happening puts him like, because you're not picking Green Violet in RTA in like higher ranks, right? Not even Violet picks him anymore. So Judge Kisei, basically cleave only, and not even that common anymore. But only place you'll see her. Calric. So he got buffed, right? I'm gonna tell you on my hand how many times I've seen him picked after his buff. Are you ready? This many times. 0 times. I have no clue if he's even good, because nobody has picked him. So I'm gonna say he's not viable, because I just don't know. Fire Ken also, unfortunately, is not viable, and yeah, I don't think he's bad either. It's just that he's kind of outclassed by other units that fill his role. Okay, now the reason Fire Ken isn't viable isn't necessarily because he's a fire type, but more because his kit has never been that good for RTA. He still takes too long to rev up to his potential, and not having an AoE in his kit definitely hurts him quite a bit. Kitty Clarissa. Is now she's a situational unit, much like Cesarado and Bazaar. She is really strong against debuffers like Fairy Tail Cerise. The reason why she's better than, say, DJ Bazaar, Arcades, Destina, stuff like that, is because she's a warrior, so she can carry things like Strack, right? But also, or like Snow Crystal. But also, she has a ER self-imprint, which is really good. She also full cleanses. She has buff reduction with unhealable attached to it, which is actually pretty strong against some teams she fights. She also allows for similar offensive counters, so she will dual attack with the highest attack unit. And because offense is really important a lot of the times, that can really help you just turn around whatever pressure the opponent puts on you and just dish it right back at them. So, not a unit you'll pick every single time, obviously, which is why she's here. But she's still one of those units that is pretty low investment, honestly. Like, I think you only really need like one Mola into her to make her like usable, and like 8, something like that, for like optimization, right? But definitely somebody, if you have the ER gear, right, with decent speed, I would consider picking her up if you're having trouble fighting counters against, like, Cerise, Fairy Tail, Bryceria, Clary, stuff like that. Blue Crow. I feel like Blue Crow has fallen off quite a bit right now. Out of all the knights in the that were like upper tier, right? He's definitely picked the least from what I see. Like A-Roz, FCC, Falcon of Clary, Lilius, all of those are picked way more often in upper ranks than Blue Crow is. It's like, I'm not gonna say Blue Crow is a bad unit, because he's not, right? Obviously. But it's just that so many units now, like, either they freaking get like Guiding Lighted and Crow can't target them, or they have like an invincibility buff and Crow can't kill them, or they just have so much HP that Crow can't kill them, right? It's just It's just like what like one of those things that happens where a lot of current builds um and also he doesn't like improve your team's offensive capabilities, right? Like, and isn't as good against, say, debuffs or cleaves as like other knights might be, like ML Crow or FCC is. So I think he's like a very, very strong pocket pick because he doesn't like necessarily like counter things like where situational encounters go, but he's definitely not a high priority pick anymore. Like nobody goes around in like higher ranks first picking or even like second, third picking Blue Crow right now. Landy. So she's definitely here. I'll like toss. Doesn't matter where she goes here. Like these are like, by the way, like these aren't in order. Like, but within the tiers are not in order, right? Landy single-handedly made it that ML Crow isn't like as good anymore, right? That's like what she did. Landy opens up a lot of high-paced strategies with her CR push. If you can get her with like a book holder, you can eliminate like semi tanky teams, not like full tank teams obviously, but like just her alone opens up like the way to also the fact that she's grass helps a lot too, because Fairy Tail has an innate 50% miss on her, and like a Soul Bird into a Soul Bird into like another S3 will do a decent chunk of damage to Fairy Tail. Obviously though, she's going to be used against the ML Crows of the world. So like a common comp I'll run sometimes is like Cerise, Landy, Brysaria, maybe like Arby and something else. And whenever it gets banned, right, I'll just continually push up my my team with like Landy's S3. Cerise will dual attack, hopefully with Landy maybe, and boost her up more. And combined with the speed buff, kind of just like overwhelms the enemy team with DPS, which is the key right now in RTA. Speaking of ML Crow though, despite counters to him rising like Brysaria and Landy, he's still a very good unit. He's if he can cleanse or have like protection against debuffers, and then you can manage to get an S3 into like a Fairy Tail Cerise comp or like an SSB, you're in a pretty good spot. It's just that now he definitely has more counterplay than he did last season. And because he's not like a pure, I win button DPS sometimes, like Arbiter Vildred, like So the difference is, like, yeah, RB has counters too, but just his pure damage output he can have with like something like Basket, or simply his survivability, or his like annoying nature with like counter Dreamblade, means that his reach is a little bit higher than ML Kraus at the moment. And you do kind of have to sacrifice a pick just to like try to counter Arby, where Bryceria and Landy, they're like good picks a lot of the times, no matter what. Fire Litica. Nobody. Okay, let's move on. Lilius, I feel, is situational now. The most common build I see for her at the moment is ER. So people are building their Liliuses on effect resistance to help counter like the Fairy Tail Cerise, stuff like that. It's a lot harder to do than Kitty Clarissa's, right? So I don't think she's like not as good at the job, and she's a little bit more defensive in doing it because she can hold night artifacts, which is important because Kid Clarissa isn't gonna like protect your team, obviously. And Lilius dual attack is random, and Kitty Clarissa dual attacks with highest attacker. But at the moment they serve similar roles, I would say. Lilius is a little bit better though against maybe like a Falconer Clary pick. Because of element, but that's like really it. Lilibet. Unfortunately. Like, even though she has Extinction, there were just much better options to like counter Arbiter Vildred right now. Her damage also is just a lot of times too low compared to the other options. So, like, if Lilibet could like somehow do as much damage as like top model Luluka, then yeah, she'd be like viable right away. But her needing her to soul burn the S3 to like guarantee kills doesn't bode well for her. Okay. LQC is a pretty strong situational unit right now. She's really good against like squishier teams that are like suspect to AoE. So like against like the T-Surins, she's really good against like things like Guiding Light, Landy. For me personally, she's one of the units that does like the best against my comps, right? Also her like self push when she's hit by AoEs makes it so that if you try to like just burst her down quickly, she can take her turn and heal up with the S3. So she has that like bit of sustain too in her kit. So one of like the few quote unquote single target damage dealers that's, you know, that's viable. Even though technically her S3 is like a pseudo AoE. It's like even better than an AoE because the splash damage can't be like countered and stuff like that. Rowana is maybe the strongest counter pick in the game right now. She is really strong against SSB, obviously, but also Cerise. She's good against Caesarado. She's good against like the Fairy Tail setup. I'd say if you have like one unit you can build as a counter pick to the enemy team, you should build Rowana. Luna. One time, a while back, I picked Luna. Like, it was like right after her EE came out. And somebody banned her. And I'm like, why? Why? Hold on, maybe, like, why would he ban Luna? Let me see, I think I have, like, a screenshot. Here. This was like this was in season 2. Right? But why? What? Why? I don't understand. Okay. Doris. I think the situations now where Doris is like good are too rare that I can put her anywhere but not currently viable. Yes, there are gonna be, like, obviously for some of these units in this tier, there are gonna be cases where they'll do pretty well, but it's not common enough right now. Where I think they're like worth building for, at least for RTA. Melissa. I think she's a pocket picker right now. Honestly, only good against Emerald Violet. And maybe against like a couple other fringe situations. But because Emerald Violet right now isn't like as good of a hero, like not as good as a pick as he was before, she's fallen off too. Also, Bryceria becoming a lot better has definitely knocked her down quite a bit. And even then, she wasn't a incredible unit. Definitely requires a ton of investment too. To be, semi useful. Right. Mersa. I say she's like situational. Kind of in Cleave, because she's like used in Cleave, but also it's a speed imprint, right? But also sometimes they're like against Cleave sometimes. Although her use case has fallen off quite a bit recently. But she's like that emergency. Oh crap! What do I pick? Pick, right? But like everything else is gone, and you just need to pick something quickly. You pick Mersa, like that. That's like what you do. SBA, I think it's a pocket pick. It's as much as like people are amping up all the control. I think by the time you get to a point where okay, now I'm gonna draft Silverblade Evermintha, you might be going like too far in to like the strategy, where at that point, countering you becomes a little bit too easy to do, which is why I feel she's not picked as much. Because once you get to like Cerise, Fairy Tail, and a Knight, stuff like that, at that point you just need damage in order to succeed. Because you just draft like all these debuffers. The other team, they can draft things like, Kitty, Lilius, right? Arby, T-Cern, and Cesarado, and you'll have like no counter recourse if you are stacking all the debuffers. So I think for her, it's just that the other debuffers in the game are just so strong that she's not as common. Also because she's an MO5, could be the case too. So less people have her than like a limited unit like Fairy Tail. Alright. FCC. Obviously, I would go as far as to say she's still the best knight in the game. So she's good against the Fairy Tail comp because her barrier gives a 50-50 on whether or not Fairy Tail will strip off the immunity. So in RTA, the strip is a random buff where sometimes she'll protect against it. Sometimes she won't. She's good against Cleave teams. She can help protect your squishy DPSers. One of the most common. So out of all the Knight bans too, she's definitely the most common Knight ban that I see right now in the meta. So if you don't have her, she's coming next week. So hopefully you get lucky and pick her up. Right now too, if you can, I do recommend having her with some crit chance. Like, you don't really need crit damage, but simply having her as like a tiny bit of a damage threat does go a long way if you can get the gearing to do that. Mortelix. So this is what Mortelix does. He'll give anti-crit like half the time. Every other turn. That only also works half the time. And it has a debuff that doesn't do anything. Because the fights are over so quickly that he can only use it once. Mooey. I'd say Mooey is... so I think she's probably a meme right now. Her pick rate isn't high enough where I put her like higher. I could see it where she's like maybe in a cleave team or like a pocket pick, right? But I just don't have enough information on her, so. But her kit is, and with her EE, I can see, doing some good things. And when I do see her pick, it makes sense, right? It's just that I've seen like freaking Dark Corvus picked more often than Mooey, which gives you like the idea on how little people believe in her. OP Sigrid is right now basically only in cleave. Like sometimes you might pick her against like other things, right? But I'd say 85% of the time she's a cleave unit. She is probably the strongest anti-cleave in the game. So she's really good against like obviously barriers, but things like Brysaria and Chaerons, because she can strip off their immortalities, and those are pretty big anti-cleave units right now. She's also pretty good against like T-Surins because of her pushback. Also her AoE can help like boost C-Doms up more. So definitely I'd say on the higher end of gearing, but a lot of and she can also be like built fast too. So like it's not like you can just completely ignore her sometimes and try to outspeed and DPS her, depending on how the draft went. Pavel. So I'm gonna tell the story. The last time I fought a Pavel, he soul burned AoE into S2 into my Caesarado, and he almost killed the Caesarado. They were just like better openers, I think, right now. And picking like SSB into an AoE cleave team, which is what like Pavel is probably an opener for. Like I don't know if how much like they really care about the SSB in those cases. Green Purgus. Huh. Yeah, this is one of those units where on paper, I feel like he's a good unit. Like, I think he is viable. I say he's like he's an okay pocket pick. The fact that he's grass definitely helps him out. In the current meta, like, so Ravi. I think Ravi right now is a situational pick. She is hurt a little bit by Element, and by the fact that there are a lot of like cleansers and like debuffers and other things going around and like immunity givers. But she is one of the best, or if not the best option against things like Landy at the moment. It's just that when you're playing against things like RB, Fairy Tail, Cerise, maybe like SSB, right? You're left up to like RNG with her quite a bit, and it's a lot easier for her to just get overwhelmed with damage before she can really do anything. So definitely not as strong as she was like last season, but still like a decent pick. That if like a Landy is picked and you have an opening, Fire Ravi is definitely one of the truest forms of answers. Bray is a counter pick. Purely for like debuffers, right? I guess it can go like here with Kitty and Lilius. It's just that I don't think he's like as good as them. Like, he's not as flexible as Lilius, and he doesn't promote the offensive capabilities of that like Kitty does either. So he's like, you better win, right? Like pretty soon after he goes, type deal. Water Rose is obviously probably just only for Cleave at the moment. Same thing for Red Shuri, because he's a speed imprint. Same thing for Green Sid, who's a speed imprint. Red Surin, although rarer, is also a speed imprint. I guess Green Vildred too. Although he's definitely like more whale territory because you need like multiple 5 stars. Alright. Ruel. So in season 1 and 2, Ruel would be like up here. Now she's like not good. Because there's so much damage going out. and so much AoE damage coming out. She just can't keep up with the DPS in the current meta. She's probably better in more situations than like most of the heroes here, but I would like never pick her in the current the way like RTA is right now at higher ranks. She's too slow at what she does. Sage Ball. He's really close to up here. I don't think he's quite as good as these three, but he's like at the cusp. Just a, true damage S3. Fast unit, good against like one of the best anti-cleave units right now in the game. Has a strong strip with a sleep on S1. So just a very loaded kit that is pretty well suited because it also takes care of a lot of the like hard to take care of buffs. So like immortality, stealth, invincibility, things like that. Melma Violet is right now, I think he's a situational pick. He's definitely not, he's not like, and a lot of this has to do, again, with this so much like strong AoE that he can get like, it only takes like one like non-dodge and that's it. And also with things like Bryceria being a lot better, and like good teams too are going to have enough survivability to probably take a counter. And if like Fairy Tail lands her debuffs or like Cerise strips off something, it's like it's just over for the Violet, unfortunately for him. So it's not even like players have started drafting in ways that are just like because they were afraid of him. It's just that the way that the meta has progressed has made it that his built-in survivability is diminished because of how much damage DPSs are doing. Where even if they miss like several times, eventually, he'll die. Like, not saying that there aren't going to be times where Emerald Violet is going to like solo you the game, because he could, right? It's within the realm of possibility. But I feel like most of the time, if you just blindly pick him into things like you might have in like season 2, you're going to be disappointed. May Chloe. She's not. Unfortunately, she's not really criminally viable. Although, to be honest, I think she's better this season than she was last season. Because top model Lulika's pick rate is down right now. But still not like good enough where I can make it so that she's like any higher. Kayron is basically purely a counter pick now. You can swing it where maybe situational, right? But for the most part, he's used against cleave teams, and I'd say that's like 90% of his use case. Because he's too risky to be brought into like anything else. So like the Fairy Tail Cerise comp like destroys him, unfortunately. So you do have to like draft around knowing you'll pick him too. So definitely harder to pick him now than he was before Fairy Tail came out. SSB is so SSB is an interesting case because she's strong enough where she could go here, but because her counters are so strong against her in Roana that she might go down here. I think she's here because her counter picks are really strong. Like an unchecked SSB is one of the most dangerous units in the game, though. It's just that I feel like your counterplay is good enough. No, actually, no. I'm gonna move her up here because she also counterplays like Cerise, Fairy Tail, and a couple other units that we haven't gotten to yet. But she is one of those units where you have to be careful when you draft her. Okay, SSA, she's a meme that works, sometimes. Okay. Spez. I say he's a pocket pick. So here's the thing about Spez. Spez's buffs made him better, but it didn't actually help his use cases. Because he still needs the setup to reliably kill Arbiter Vildreds. I never thought Spez was a really good option to counter Arbiter Vildred. His buffs made him better against the rest of the field, but there's a problem with his counter viability when most of the time Spez users will elect to not S3 Arby's if they don't have the stun. Because they know they're not gonna kill him. And honestly, I don't feel like a lot of the times his other skills quite do enough, at least in comparison to like the units like up here, where they're just a little bit like more reliable in what they do, which is why I think it's safe to say like the Spez buffs were overhyped. Like, not a bad unit, but also like not a unit that I'm like worried about if I find him. T-Surin. I think she's also a situational pick, although again, she's a very strong situational pick. When like the so when you have like an opening for her where she's gonna be not like hard countered by like SSB or something like that, or like she can definitely do some work, but it's again, it's like not as easy to pick her now as it was before, because of all the like the AOE that's going out. She's in a lot more danger than she was in previous seasons. Fire Tenebria right now, I don't think she's like viable. There's only one fire type who has like debuffs. I think it's decent, and she's like the last hero we'll talk about. Tamala Luluka right now is a I'm gonna put it in situational because she can be used in cleave as like a booster, also against like Arbiter Villager. She's probably she has a similar issue with Spez, not as big though, because she's self-sufficient with her attack buff. So, but even then, let's say Arby is protected by like FCC, or even like Arby's like by themselves. If they know you have Dreamblade on, a lot of the times they will elect to attack another target instead of the Arby. Because if they S3 and miss the Arby, they just lose. So like, it's things like that has made her like a little more risky to use. On top of that, all the AOE and stuff like that, the buffers like Brysaria does really well against her too. It has definitely made her not as common. Spectre. So out of all the units in the game, I think hold on, that's Wanda. So out of all the units in the game, I think Spectre Tenebria has been hurt the most. Oh, I guess Ruel. I think Ruel has been hurt the most, but like, out of all the DPS units in the game, Spectre Tenebria's like viability has dropped significantly. Even with like good defense, right? Stuff like that. She either gets like controlled with all the AoE debuffs coming out, or she gets just killed by all the AoE damage that's going out. Like, I think she's probably here in situational. She's like in between these two here. Because I think she's better than like a lot of these units most of the time, but also worse than a lot of these units a lot of the time too. Rayboon, hello there. Vivian, I think she's a pocket pick right now. Not necessarily a strong one. She's a little bit too slow, I feel like, to do what I think players wanted to do. Her cleanse is a little bit too maybe RNG a little bit. Like, this is a strategy where you pick her and you're banning out like Fairy Tail, and she's purely for like Cerise. Rayburn, yes. So this will be uploaded to YouTube probably in like the next day or two. Okay, ML Leo. So ML Leo is one of the best heroes for like level 5 battles. Not even kidding. But that's it. That's all he does. ML Rin is a pretty strong counter pick to like Cerise in particular. That's really her like main use case, but a strong enough one where she's like worth banning a lot of the times because of it. And oh wait, Marching Mercedes. So right now, so here's the thing. Not a lot of people have her built. But the ones that do have her built, she's strong enough where I think you can put her into like pocket pick at the moment. Her main issue is consistency. Where let's say she worked like even if like she worked like 50% more of the time, I feel like she'd be a lot better. Maybe even too good at that point. But when she does do what he wanted to do, she's pretty insane. It's just that you're gonna have those like feast or famine type battles when you use her or go against her. Alright, and finally we have Politis. So Politis obviously is a counter pick. Politis did a really interesting thing where she pretty much eliminated Cleave teams. Oh, not totally, right? But ever since she came out, very few players have tried to cleave have tried to cleave me in RTA. And she's good enough against them that Cleave players are picking Politis sometimes. Even though she's not like the best character in a Cleave team, just so that the other person can't pick her. That's how how good she is against those compositions. So it's kind of like what Rowana and Holiday Fiend did when they came out to like SSB and Bizarre overall, where just the threat of her in the game has caused like what she's good against to be less picked. Now obviously, people still pick SSB even with Rowana in the game, right? And people still pick Bizarre even with Holiday Fiend in the game. It's just that they like counter like individual units a lot of times where Politis counters a strategy. Like she counters like a game mechanic, basically. But like when I build her right now, only if people cleave you a lot in RTA. Like she's nice to have in like your stable of anti-cleave units, because to fight against cleave, if you're not going to outspeed them, you definitely need like a suite of several units to fight against a cleave team. But if you already have maybe like 8 units that are good against cleave, maybe you don't need her, right? But if you don't have like say those 8 units built up, then yeah, then she's a probably the best at what she does. But yeah, again, really quickly, this is the list. You can scroll through it a little bit. You can see all of the heroes. The rest of these heroes here, honestly, they're just not worth talking about. Some of them might have like very niche situations where they might be okay, but not enough where I'd say it matters. Anyway, I'm Wild Neptune. Hope you find this helpful in your climb through the ranks in RTA in Season 3. Remember that if you're in doubt on what you want to do, focusing on your offensive strategies is probably going to take you further than anything else in the game right now. So if you are limited in what you can do, I would focus on just doing as much damage as possible. Anyway, Nep out.